Hey guys, it's Richard Cooper. I'm the founder and CEO of Total Debt Freedom, and today I want to review what a bankruptcy trustee does. Now first let me start by saying I know many trustees, a lot of them are great people, and there's definitely a place in the debt relief space for insolvency, what a bankruptcy trustee does with bankruptcy or a consumer proposal. There's a lot of value in it, especially if you're in well over your head. Generally speaking, if you owe considerably more than what you own, you're insolvent, and talking to a trustee about what they offer is a good idea. Let me stop there now. I've got two problems with a trustee. The first is under the Bankruptcy and Insolvencies Act, and I had to dig very deep to find this because there's a lot of pages on the internet when you Google it that tend to get ahead of this truth. It's very hard to find. And if you look under the Superintendent of Bankruptcy Canada website, Part 1, General Information, a trustee's role, they talk about inspectors and different roles of a trustee. But it says right here, the trustee is an officer of the court who acts in a fiduciary capacity to the creditors. Now those are some big words. When you translate them, what it means is that the trustee is an appointed agent to the creditors, so the people that you owe. Let me break it down even in simpler terms. You pay a trustee to get you out of debt. That goes in a trustee's pocket, but the trustee is an appointed agent to your creditors. They're not acting for your best interest. What they do is they follow these rules in the Bankruptcy and Insolvencies Act, tables and things based on your income, your assets, things that are exempt from the bankruptcy process. It's complicated, it's not simple, and I can't cover it all in one video here. But the thing being is, their role is to make sure that the money gets back to the creditors. Whatever the bankruptcy tables that the government outlines say should go back to them, goes back to them. So they're acting for the creditors even though you pay them. That's the first problem that I have. The second problem that I have, and before I get into it, let me just tell you what a trustee normally is, because I know a lot of these guys, and their background is usually in accounting. They're usually CMAs, they're chartered accountants, they're bean counters usually. They started their career with numbers, and they're good at it, and deservedly so. They offer that value to consumers when they're moving your assets over to the creditors to deal with the debt. Now, like I mentioned, I've got two problems with trustees, and the second is this, is how they get paid on a consumer proposal, which is what they like to sell a lot of these days. They tend to sell consumer proposals as the best way to avoid bankruptcy, and I think it's BS. Mostly because I think the best way to avoid a bankruptcy proceeding is to deal with debt settlement, is to take a settlement approach and settle the debts, whether you do it yourself or you hire a company like ours to do it for you. I think it's probably the best way for most people to try to avoid bankruptcy, because the problem with a bankruptcy, on top of the fact that a trustee is an appointed agent to the creditors, is how they get paid. They get paid 20% of every payment that goes to your creditors. Think about that for a second. They bean count all the lines, they look at your assets, your liabilities, your income, your expenses, they look at government tables and they see what they got to do. And then they go and make sure that every single dollar, every penny they have to distribute to the creditors goes there, because they're a court-appointed agent to the creditors and they're getting paid 20% of every payment that the creditors get. They're not motivated to save you money. They follow tables and they follow the rules and they do the right thing. But if they're getting paid 20% of payments that go to creditors, they're not motivated to reduce the amount that goes to creditors. There's nothing there dealing with that. So I have a problem with that. A lot of the times I'll see advertisements, comments in the press, the media, and articles, Twitter, Facebook, wherever, and trustees often advertise and talk about our consumer proposal is the best way to avoid bankruptcy. It's a great way to avoid bankruptcy because it's a consumer proposal and will protect your rights and all that stuff, and they protect some rights. They stop phone calls and creditors can't sue you. But at the end of the day, they're not working for you. They're an advocate for the insolvency system. They're not a referee in a hockey game like they say they are. They're not impartial. They are partial. The Insolvencies Act says that they're an appointed agent to the creditors. The way they get paid, the way they get compensated is a percentage of what goes back to the creditors. It's not possible to be impartial in those circumstances. Think about it for a second. If you're a real estate agent and you're listing my house, and my house is listed for $500,000, you'd be motivated to sell the house for $520,000 if you could get in offers more than the asking price, because you're going to get 5%, usually is what their commission rate is, of what the house sells for. So you're going to do your best to get as much money as possible. So you have to be careful when you're dealing with a trustee. Yes, they do offer valuable service. Yes, it's something to consider if you're well in over your head. But just remember, they are not looking after your best interest. They are looking after the interests of the creditor, according to the Insolvencies Act here, and they're also getting paid more to get more money back to the creditor. So just keep that in mind. Be very careful with the trustee, and if they encourage you to look at a consumer proposal, consider it, but weigh it against a bankruptcy on a piece of paper and see what works best for you, because it's important. What does work best for you? Now, if you've got questions, we can certainly answer them. Just give us a call. Also subscribe to our channel here on YouTube, because we've got tons of great content coming down for you. Thanks. Have an awesome day.